Imagine a silhouette appearing on a dusty horizon, the scorching sun of the Levant glinting off a polished steel helmet. A white mantle flutters in the desert wind, emblazoned with a blood-red cross, a symbol that for 2 centuries meant either salvation or certain death. To some, they were the poor fellow soldiers of Christ, humble protectors of the weak. To others, they were a shadowy cabal of occultists, the precursors to every conspiracy theory that has ever gripped the human imagination. From the dusty streets of Jerusalem to the damp dungeons of Paris, the Knights Templar built an empire that transcended borders and kings, only to be dismantled in a night of fire and betrayal. But did they truly disappear? Today, we peel back the layers of myth, Hollywood fiction, and historical revisionism to uncover the real-life secret society of the Knights Templar. Our story begins not with gold and glory, but with 9 men in rags. The year was 1119, just 2 decades after the First Crusade had captured Jerusalem. The Holy Land was a chaotic patchwork of crusader states, and for the thousands of Christian pilgrims making the treacherous journey from the coast to the Holy City, death lurked behind every rocky outcrop. Bandits and marauding bands made the roads a graveyard. Seeing this carnage, a French nobleman named Hugues de Payens and 8 companions stepped forward. They took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, pledging to protect these pilgrims. They were so poor, legend says, that they had only 1 horse for every 2 knights, an image later immortalized on their official seal. King Baldwin II of Jerusalem granted them a headquarters in a wing of the royal palace on the Temple Mount, the site where the Temple of Solomon was believed to have stood. It was from this location that they took their name, the Order of the Poor Knights of the Temple of Solomon. For the first 9 years, they remained small, obscure, and impoverished. But everything changed when they caught the eye of the most influential churchman in Europe, Bernard of Clairvaux. Bernard was a powerhouse of medieval politics and theology. He saw in the Templars a new kind of entity, the warrior monk. Up until this point, the church generally frowned upon monks shedding blood. But Bernard penned a glowing endorsement titled In Praise of the New Knighthood, arguing that killing an enemy of Christ was not homicide, but malicide, the killing of evil itself. This theological gymnastics gave the Templars a divine license to kill. In 1129, at the Council of Troyes, the order was officially recognized by the papacy. The floodgates opened. Suddenly, the Templars were the darlings of Christendom. Noblemen across Europe, eager to save their souls without actually leaving their estates, donated massive tracts of land, castles, and fortunes to the order. In 1139, Pope Innocent II issued a papal bull that effectively turned the Templars into a state within a state. They were exempt from all taxes, they could build their own churches, and they were answerable to no king or bishop, only to the Pope himself. But here is where the history takes a turn into the truly extraordinary. While we remember them as fierce warriors, the Templars were perhaps the world's first multinational corporation. Because they owned a network of commanderies stretching from Scotland to Syria, they developed a revolutionary financial system to help pilgrims travel safely. A pilgrim could deposit his wealth at a Templar office in London or Paris, receive a coded letter of credit, and then withdraw the equivalent value in Jerusalem. In doing so, the Templars essentially invented modern banking. They became the creditors of kings, funding entire wars, and even purchasing the island of Cyprus. As their wealth grew, so did their mystique. The Templars were a closed society. Their meetings were held in secret, often in the dead of night. Their churches, modeled after the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, were round, breaking away from the traditional cruciform design of the era. This secrecy was the seed from which the modern myths grew. What were they doing behind closed doors? What rituals were they performing in their round chapels? For nearly 200 years, the Templars were the elite special forces of the Crusades. At the Battle of Montgisard, a few hundred Templars helped a small Crusader army defeat Saladin's force of 26,000. They were the first in, last out on every battlefield, forbidden by their code to retreat unless the odds were more than 3-1, and even then, only if their banner had fallen. But the tides of history were shifting. By the late 13th century, the Crusader states were crumbling. In 1291, the city of Acre fell, and the Christians were driven from the Holy Land. The Templars lost their primary purpose. They were no longer the protectors of the road to Jerusalem. They were simply an immensely wealthy, private army stationed across Europe, answerable to no one. This made them a target. Specifically, it made them the target of King Philip IV of France, known as Philip the Fair. Philip was a man of cold ambition and even colder debts, most of which he owed to the Templars. He had tried to join the order himself and was rejected. He had tried to tax them and failed. He realized that if he could destroy the order, his debts would vanish and their vast wealth would be his to seize. On the morning of Friday, October 13th, 1307, a date many believe is the origin of the Friday the 13th superstition, Philip struck. In a coordinated police action that would make a modern intelligence agency envious, every Templar in France was arrested simultaneously. They were charged with a laundry list of unthinkable crimes: heresy, spitting on the cross, practicing sodomy, and worshipping a mysterious idol known as Baphomet. The confessions that followed were a product of the brutal medieval Inquisition. Men were stretched on racks, burned with hot irons, and starved until they admitted to whatever the king's interrogators demanded. Some spoke of a secret initiation where they were told that Christ was a false prophet. Others described a severed head with 3 faces that they worshipped in the dark. While modern historians generally agree these confessions were coerced and false, they served their purpose. The reputation of the order was shattered. The Pope, Clement V, was a weak man under the thumb of the French king. Despite his own investigations suggesting the order was largely innocent of heresy, he officially dissolved the Templars in 1312. Their lands were supposedly handed over to their rivals, the Knights Hospitaller, though much of the liquid wealth ended up in King Philip's coffers. The end came in 1314. Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Temple, had spent 7 years in a dungeon. He had confessed under torture, but as he was led out onto a small island in the Seine River to be burned at the stake, he recanted. He declared the order holy and the charges false. As the flames rose around him, legend says he issued a curse. He summoned both King Philip and Pope Clement to meet him before the judgment seat of God within a year. Within months, both the Pope and the King were dead. This is where the history books usually close the chapter, but for the world of secret societies, it's where the real story begins. The disappearance of the Templars was too sudden, too violent, and too mysterious for people to accept it as the end. Rumors began to circulate almost immediately. It was noted that the Templar fleet, anchored at La Rochelle, vanished before the king's men could seize it. Where did they go? Some say they fled to Scotland, where they helped Robert the Bruce defeat the English at the Battle of Bannockburn. Others believe they fled to Portugal, simply changing their name to the Order of Christ. The most enduring legends suggest that the Templars went underground, preserving their rituals and their secret knowledge for centuries. In the 18th century, Freemasonry began to claim a lineage back to the medieval knights, adopting their imagery and titles. This gave birth to the Templar mythos, the idea that the knights discovered something beneath the Temple of Solomon that gave them power. Was it the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, or perhaps a secret truth about the bloodline of Christ that could topple the church? From the ornate carvings of Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland to the supposed treasure pits of Oak Island, the Templar ghost is everywhere. Every few decades, a new secret document or ancient map surfaces, claiming to prove they survived. Even today, there are numerous organizations that call themselves Knights Templar. Some are charitable organizations, others are neo-chivalric orders. But they all share a common thread, a fascination with the idea of a brotherhood that stands apart from the world, bound by a secret code. The reality of the Knights Templar is perhaps even more fascinating than the myths. They were the pioneers of the global economy, the masters of the medieval battlefield, and the first victims of a massive, state-sponsored propaganda campaign. They rose from 9 men on a single horse to a force that made emperors tremble, only to be extinguished by the very power they helped protect. The story of the Templars is a reminder of how quickly power can be taken away, and how easily truth can be buried under layers of legend. Their legacy is not found in hidden gold or ancient relics, but in the enduring human desire to believe in something greater, something hidden, and something that survives the flames of history. As we look back at the ruins of their commanderies and the circular walls of their chapels, we are left to wonder, was the secret of the Templars something they found in the dirt of Jerusalem? Or was their secret simply the sheer audacity to believe they could answer to no one but God? And in a world that feels increasingly transparent, why do we still find ourselves searching for the shadows of the Red Cross? Perhaps it is because, as long as there is a mystery left unsolved, the Order of the Temple never truly dies. What do you think was the true cause of their downfall? Was it their secret rituals, or simply their overwhelming wealth? And if their treasure still exists today, what form do you think it takes?